Section 5.4 is multiplying fractions. Our learning target here is I can multiply fractions. The product of two or more fractions is equal to the product of the numerators over the product of the denominators. So here, with fractions, we can rewrite them as one fraction and multiply across, top times top over bottom by bottom, and then reduce if possible. So in example 1, I have 7/10 times -4 over 21. Here, I'm going to rewrite this as one fraction, where I take numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. From here, we have two options. We can either multiply straight across first and then reduce. So 7 times -4 is -28. 10 times 21 is 210. Then we look and see what goes into both. Well, our greatest common factor here is going to be a 14. So -28 divided by 14 gives me -2. And 21 divided by 14 is going to give me 15. So I get -2/5. The other way we can do this is we can look at our original problem and try and reduce right away. So in my numerator I have a 7. I can take that 7 out of 21 as well, and I'm left with a 3 and a 1. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, 21 divided by 7 is 3. So if one's in the numerator and one's in the denominator, we can cancel that out. Just like between 4 and 10, I can take out a 2. Their greatest common factor is a 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. And now I can multiply what's left. 1 times -2 over 5 times 3. And that gets me to -2 over 15 the same way. So it doesn't matter which one you do, whether you multiply across and then simplify, or simplify first and then multiply. I like to simplify first and then multiply because it's a lot easier to do. Like this we could have all done with multiplication charts, but the 210 and dividing all that, we would have had to use either long division or a calculator or think about it harder in our heads. So you can do it either way, but yeah, we get to the same spot. Again, I like to reduce first, but it's however you feel more comfortable. In example 2 here, we have a mixed number. So again, with mixed numbers, remember we take denominator times whole number plus numerator. So 4 times 4 is 16 plus 3 is 19 over 4 times 63, we write as 63 over 1. We write whole numbers over 1 in order to turn them into rational numbers or fractions. Now when we multiply fractions, we can multiply straight across. So I get 19 times 63 over 4 times 1. And if we want to try and reduce first here, we look, 4 in my denominator is even, which means its only factors are 2. And in the numerator, both of those are odd, so there's no common factors here to reduce out. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply straight across first. When I do that in my numerator, I'm going to get 1,197. And in my denominator, I'm going to get 4. Now here, because my numerator is bigger than my denominator, remember we have to divide. Switch it back to a mixed number. So I get 1,197 divided by 4. Top divided by bottom. 4 goes into 11 twice, which is 8 when I multiply it back. When I subtract here, I get 3, drop down to 9. 4 goes into 39 9 times. When I multiply that back, it's 36. I subtract and get 3, drop down to 7. 4 goes into 37 9 times, which is 36. And I have a remainder of 1. So, my answer here then is 299, and my remainder is my numerator over my denominator. 299 and a fourth. We're going to find the product here. In number 1, we're multiplying fractions, so we multiply straight across. top times bottom, top times top, bottom times bottom. So I take 2 times 7 over 3 times 8. I'm going to check to see if there's anything we can reduce. 2 goes into 8. They're a common factor. So I can take a 2 out of 2, which leaves me with a 1, and a 2 out of 8, which leaves me with a 4. 7 and 3 don't simplify at all. So what I have here then when I multiply is 1 times 7 over 3 times 4. And again, you could have multiplied across first and then reduced, which still gets you to the same place. It's just you're working with bigger numbers to have to try and reduce. Whereas if we can see factors, even if they're not the prime factorization, it's sometimes a little bit easier to reduce. In 2, again, we have fractions. And to multiply fractions, I multiply straight across. So even though these are in parentheses, it's just 2 fractions being multiplied together. So here I have negative 5 times 3. And I'm going to take the negative with the 5. I also could have taken it with the 12. It doesn't matter as long as we only do it once. So then I have 12 times 10 in my denominator. I'm going to look here and see if I can simplify with my 5. Well, 5 goes into 5 one time and into 10 2 times. I can do the same thing with my 3. 3 goes into 3 once and into 12 4 times. So now what I have is negative 1 times 1 over 4 times 2. I can go ahead and multiply across. And I get negative 1 over 8. Double check to make sure we didn't forget to reduce anything. But here that is in simplest form, which again is a little bit simpler to reduce than if we would have done the negative 5 times 3 over the 12 times 10. We can reduce negative 15 over 120, but it's a lot easier to do when they're smaller pieces to start with. In 3, first thing I'm going to do is rewrite these as improper fractions. So 10 is over 1. Again, whole numbers we put over 1. Here, I'm going to take 11 times 2 plus 3, which gives me 22 plus 3, 25 over 11. And don't forget that it's negative there. Now with fractions, we multiply straight across. So I take numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. And if we look here, 11 is prime. It doesn't go into 10 or 25. So there's nothing else we can do as far as simplifying. So we can actually do our multiplication, which gives me negative 250 over 11. And again, this doesn't reduce, but what it does do is switch into a mixed number since 250 is bigger. So I can take 250 divided by 11. 11 goes into 25 2 times, which is 22. 3 drop down to 0. 11 goes into 30 twice, which again is 22, with a remainder of 8. So my answer here is going to be negative 22 and 8 over 11. And in 4, again, I'm going to write these both as fractions. 3/4 already is, but negative 12 becomes negative 12 over 1. When I multiply fractions, I multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. I'm going to try and reduce if I can. 3 doesn't go into 4 or into 1, but in 12 and 4 there's a common factor, 4. So I can divide each of them by 4. So when I take 12 divided by 4, I get 1. And when I take 4 divided by 4, I get 1. And 12 divided by 4 gives me 3. Now I multiply straight across. I just rewrote it there so it was a little bit simpler to see with our simplified versions, and it gives me negative 9 over 1. But again, we always want to write this in simplest form. Since it's over 1, we can actually divide there and get just negative 9. It's a whole number. Actually, it's an integer, sorry. But it doesn't have a fractional part there because it's just over 1. Example 3 is multiplying mixed numbers. So here I'm going to switch both mixed numbers into improper fractions. So 4 times 2 plus 3 gives me negative 11 over 4. Again, we take the 4 times 2 plus 3 and then label it as negative. Times 5 times 3 plus 1, 16 over 5. Now, when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. We want to try and reduce if we can. So here 11 is prime, but 16 and 4. Remember, if it's in the numerator and the denominator and it has a common factor, we can divide that out. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So what I have left here is negative 11 times 4 over 1 times 5. And that gives me negative 44 over 5. Since 44 is bigger than 5, we have to divide to switch it into a mixed number. 5 goes into 44 8 times, which is 40, and I have a remainder of 4. So my answer here then is negative 8 and remainder over denominator, 4/5. Here we're going to find the product. So again, I'm going to switch from mixed numbers to improper fractions. 8 times 4 plus 7 gives me 39 over 8. Times 5 times 3 plus 2, 17 over 3. With fractions, we multiply straight across, so we take numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator, and we try and reduce if we can. 39 and 3 have a common factor of 3, so if I divide by 3 on both of them, I get 13 and 1. Now I can multiply straight across. 17 is prime. It doesn't, so 13 and 17 are both prime now, and neither one of them go into 8. So I get 13 times 17 over 8 times 1. We go ahead and multiply here, and I get 221 over 8. 221 is bigger, so we're going to go ahead and divide. 221 divided by 8. 8 goes into 22 twice, which is 16. I subtract and get 6, drop down the 1. 8 goes into 61 7 times, which is 56. Subtract, and we get 5. So our answer then is going to be whole number 27, remainder is my numerator, over 8 my denominator. In 6, I'm going to switch from mixed numbers to improper fractions. 7 times 3 plus 2 gives me 23 over 7, and again it's negative, so we label it as negative, times 2 times 1 plus 1, 3 over 2. We multiply straight across, so I get negative 23 times 3 over 7 times 2. If we look here, all of these are they're prime numbers, and I don't have them double up anywhere. So my numerator and denominator are relatively prime. I can't reduce it any further. So I go ahead and multiply, which gives me negative 69 over 14. 69 is bigger than 14, so we go ahead and divide. 14 goes in there 4 times, which gives me 56. When I reduce, I get 13. So here my answer is going to be negative 4 and 13 over 14. And I'm almost out of time here, so I'll finish this in another video.